Chapter 85. Walter's Homecoming. The challenging period in Stuttgart, Germany, and the aftermath within the academic music community at the University of Oslo and in the Norwegian press. The elephant in the room comes into view. A first disclaimer. All persons in this book are fictional. All claims, regardless of topic, are merely claims. Some are rooted in empirical facts, while others are pure imagination. My aim is to balance vision and reality, fiction and fact, in such a way that the audience may recognize themselves and continue to play with the multitude of ideas and inventions. The book has no ambition to proclaim any overarching objective, but rather questions established truths. In that way, in the Socratic spirit, it leaves the rest to the audience. At Oslo Gardermoen Airport, a considerable press corps had gathered in the arrivals hall awaiting Walter's arrival. During the past few days, Norwegian media had picked up on the culture war in Bavaria, Germany. Not only had Walter's heroic struggle with German professors and music critics been noted in Norwegian media, but also in several major European cities. It seemed that the subject had become interesting to more than just the musical elite at universities and colleges. The press wanted to know what this was fundamentally about. For many, the discussion between the composer Walter and music critic Baumgarten from Stuttgarter Zeitung had been far too academically internal. It had no broader relevance. But now the discussion had ignited others, especially people with a relatively defined view of what culture should be and what it should not be. And in the wake of Professor Nakua's recent guest lecture at the Tokyo Institute of Geopolitics, the same professor who had stirred emotions with his lecture at the University of South Norway, the culture war was further intensified. Nakua had claimed that Japanese culture possessed a higher quality than other cultures, even if he had not directly stated that Japanese culture was superior to all other cultures. He had appeared provocatively ethnocentric to the audience, and for some this amounted to toxic nationalism. Walter's clash with Baumgarten contained elements of this issue. Baumgarten's criticism of Walter concerned the degree of reuse involved in the creation of new works. In this case, Walter's world premiere of his organ symphony came under scrutiny. Not only the performance, which had been brilliant, but the work itself and the means he had employed. Baumgarten was highly critical of Walter's use of the preserved treasures of music history. The easily recognizable musical references to earlier great masters made Baumgarten see red. He believed Walter's work was generic in character, not innovative. If a composer today were to create something entirely new, there would have to be a complete break with the conservative musical tradition. Walter, on the other hand, believed this was a complete fallacy, an illogical and outrageous claim. And the matter was not made easier when a vast field of cultural history was drawn into it, especially one tainted by political history. Walter was deeply aware that the development of music had not remained untouched by social and political upheavals. Lady Musica had been used for almost everything, both as whore and Madonna. But according to Walter's observations, music would fare best without being glued to any particular ideology. He thought it was perfectly acceptable for artists to create political and religious art, but the danger was that those in power, or powerful circles, those who usually held the power of definition, would override the artistically unique element of the artistic expression itself. He strove to keep music free from one-sided ideological weight. Equilibrium was his own motto. The press and Norwegian media found this far too complicated. They wanted tabloid headlines that ordinary people could understand. Please, make this war simpler. The cultural sphere ought to be without bloodthirsty warriors. Yes, most people had the impression that culture should be something joyful, life-affirming, and interesting. something to enjoy without heavy social questions mixed into it. Others saw it differently. On the battlefield of the culture war, the truly great battles for humanity were being fought. Juran and Freiman were present at the press conference. They could see where this was heading. They knew that Walter did not want an escalation and would much rather be finished with all the commotion. He wanted peace and a modest little vacation. But the troubled sea could not be calmed. When Walter had finally returned home, he sat down in the armchair in the living room, turned up the volume on a recording by the piano master Sviatoslav Richter, Partita No. 6 in E minor. BWV 830 by Johann Sebastian Bach.